Hello again. I did not mean to wait this long to make another video, but now we've got 4 episodes to talk about, so let's get into it. To start off, I realized I didn't talk about the new intro sequence last time. I'll admit, at first, I didn't like it. I was looking for something to get me hyped up for the series, and it felt very low energy. However, I appreciate the imagery a bit more now. Taking all of the icons from the Netflix intro sequence and breaking them down to build up something new is a strong message. Not necessarily a message I agree with, because I still don't like the fact that they basically threw away 2/3 of Matt's crew in the first episode, but I can respect wanting a fresh start. Another thing is the BB Report segments. We're over halfway through the season and I'm still not sure how I feel about them. Maybe it's building to something, but honestly it feels more like interruptions at this point. Just constantly asking citizens, how do you feel about vigilantes? And 90% of the answers are, they help when other people won't. Which is very on brand, but it feels repetitive when you keep doing it. In episodes 2 and 3, they make a point to show Wilson Fisk's knuckles are bruised, which kind of goes against all of the turning a new page act that he's putting on. Obviously, that's good for us, because it would be really boring if he actually just gave up being a crime boss. We learn later that at least part of the reason for the bruised knuckles is that he has captured the man that Vanessa cheated on him with while he was away doing the Hawkeye and Echo shows. He's keeping him locked in a cell somewhere, and in episode 6 takes him out just to beat him. He does give the guy an axe to help level the playing field a bit, but somehow he's able to avoid every swing. I don't know, maybe the guy is starved and weakened, but I feel like it shouldn't be that difficult to hit a man of Fisk's size. Speaking of Vanessa, her and Fisk are going to couples therapy with Matt's new girlfriend, Heather. Of course, they don't know that it's Matt's girlfriend, but that feels like it might be important later on. It's interesting to see them trying to work through their struggles, but it does seem a bit out of left field considering how inseparable they were in the previous series. I do love the amount of courtroom drama that we're getting, at least in the first few episodes. Writers like this would have done wonders in the She-Hulk series, which barely had any court scenes, and kind of crashed and burned with the ones that they did have. I'm not an attorney, so I can't say how realistic these scenes are, but they feel good. And watching Matt try to get Hector out from under the crushing weight of the NYPD is beautiful, as we see a level of corruption that feels far too familiar. Even after Matt manages to get his main witness onto the stand, which was difficult enough, the sheer intimidation of the 30 or so officers in the room was enough to get him to back down and lie. Matt manages to succeed in the end through leveraging Hector's identity as the White Tiger, but the cops can't have him just walk away, so a night or two later he gets shot point blank as he is going out to patrol the city. A moment made all the more heartbreaking by the real-life death of Camar de los Reyes, who played Hector Ayala, and really makes you feel the soul of that character in these first couple episodes. He has a scene earlier with Matt where he talks about Puerto Rico and the sound of the coqui frogs, which are native there. He says he wishes he could go back to hear that sound just one more time. And then the absolute gut wrench when they play the sound of the coqui frogs over the credits. I'd be lying if I said I didn't tear up a little bit. Episode 4 reintroduces us to the Punisher, whose logo we saw on Hector's murderer at the end of the last episode. Matt goes to confront Frank about it, and comic fans will immediately see the possibility for a interpretation of a very famous comic scene where Frank confronts some fanboy cops. I don't know if we'll get to see something like that in the show, but it would be really cool if we did, especially considering the amount of real cops that plaster the Punisher logo on their uniforms in squad cars. I absolutely love the conversation that Matt and Frank have. It's reminiscent of the rooftop scene between them, which was maybe one of the best scenes in the Netflix show. Something about Matt and Frank discussing philosophy is just perfect. Matt gets another client, Leroy, who is caught stealing snacks. And as always, Matt's clients have the most poignant moments of truth. There is a scene after Matt proves his prowess as an attorney by getting this guy a 10-day prison sentence, where Leroy tells him that that's not enough because the system is built to keep people like him in a cycle of crime. He said the last time he got locked up, he lost his Social Security benefits, which meant that he had less money, which means that he had more incentive to steal things. The icing on the cake is him telling Matt they are willing to spend 5 times more to lock me up than they're willing to spend to feed me. And if that doesn't speak to how messed up our justice system is, I don't know what does. On a lighter note, Wilson Fisk is being dragged around New York City to have meet and greets with everyone. And they have this recurring bit where everyone he meets with wants to sing Starship's "We Built This City," and that really got to me. Episode 5 is kind of a bottle episode. Matt gets taken hostage at a bank. They loosely tie it into the main plot by saying that the robbers were hired by one of the gang leaders that works with Fisk. Anyway, we spend a lot of time with Yusuf, who is the father of Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel. I initially thought it was just going to be a cameo, but then he's there for the entire episode. I think they laid it on a little thick that he was Kamala's dad, as if people wouldn't get it. At one point, he even shows a Miss Marvel Funko Pop. The fight scene in the stairwell was kind of cool, but I feel like Matt is maybe a little too loose with his identity. When he beat up the cops, it was their pride that kept them from speaking up about it. But I assume the robbers got arrested, and if I was in their position, I would just think that someone was faking being blind. And I don't know why they wouldn't bring that up during an interrogation. There is a really funny joke told by the hostage negotiator. I won't spoil it in case anyone is watching this without having seen the episode, but why would you do that? Go watch it. Matt Murdock, of course, has the ears of Superman. Not only is he able to hear the robbery start from down the block on a busy New York street, but he's able to break into the vault in less than a minute. It's a bit far-fetched, but it's also kind of fun, so I'm okay with it. It took 6 episodes, but we finally see Matt praying. I feel like Catholicism is a really big part of his character, both in the Netflix series and in the comics, and it's been seriously missing from this show so far. Hopefully we can start to see a bit more of that, because I feel like his belief in God and his religious guilt really inform who he is and why he chooses to do what he does. Heather brings up an interesting question about whether masks make people more feral, or if having their identity hidden just allows them to be who they really are. An age-old question, to be sure. Probably most famously tackled in the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. In modern interpretations, Mr. Hyde is a literal monster, but in the original story, the serum basically just changes his appearance and takes away his inhibitions. So all of the horrible actions are still Jekyll's. Got sidetracked for a bit there, but I do find this question valuable, especially in a time where anonymous online forums and social media allow people to say horrendous things to each other while hiding behind their screens. Anyway, we learn that the masked villain that was teased at the end of episode 4 is someone called Muse, who is responsible for all of the murals that we've seen throughout the series. Come to find out that he has been mixing his paint with the blood of his victims and then covering the murals with epoxy to make it harder to remove. And in one of the rare moments where Wilson Fisk is right, he does call out the ridiculousness of the fact that the sanitation department discovered a serial killer before the police department. I don't really understand why he decided to display the bodies at his most recent mural. I think they said something about him trying to taunt the NYPD, but why now? He couldn't possibly know that they're onto him unless Muse is someone in Wilson Fisk's circle. Otherwise, it would be awfully coincidental for him to decide to out himself at the exact same time that they discover the blood paint. We do get a brief cameo from Swordsman at a fundraising event that Fisk attends. I don't know if that's going to be important to the plot, but it does make the world feel connected and lived in, so that's nice. I will say at the end of episode 6, neither of those fights were super impressive. Matt goes to save Angela Ayala, who is trying to continue her uncle's investigation when she gets captured. Meanwhile, Fisk is beating up the man in a cell, but I've already talked about that, so I'm going to focus on the Daredevil fight. Matt finally suits back up. Not the best looking suit in my opinion, but it's pretty dark in that scene, so we don't really get a good look at it. We also get more of the stupid CGI Daredevil swinging through the city like Spider-Man. I don't know what that's about. I'm not sure what kind of abilities or training Muse has. Maybe people who have read the comics understand that a bit more, but he felt both too strong and too weak at the same time. Like when he takes a punch, it looks like he is getting absolutely pummeled, and I feel like it should be relatively easy for Daredevil to take on someone like him. But then somehow he manages to keep Matt on his toes for a decent amount of time and sneak away while Matt is saving Angela. So much for those Superman ears. But that's it. Still really enjoying the show. 3 episodes left, but they've already announced a second season, so there's a lot to look forward to. Anyway, let me know what you think about the show down in the comments, and subscribe so you can hear me talk about the rest of the season. Thanks. See you next time.